live, people. Oh, no.
Whoa.
We got the whole thing. We're alive now.
And it's New Year.
It's the day after. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. This was last year was survive till 25. It is now 25. We've made it, right?
Right.
Have you heard the new theme, Mike? It's stay in the mix till 26.
Oh, right. Stay in the mix until 26. So a little bit of potentially thriving in 25 or setting the stage for thriving.
I don't know if we're going to thrive in 25. I don't know. It would be interesting, but there's a lot of mixed news out today about multifamily. Before we get into the news, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody who's watching our show? It's Trump watches every religiously, by the way. So we should say hi, President Trump.
Love it. So my name is Mike Brewer. I've been around the industry for roughly 30 years, mostly on the operations side of the multifamily business, all different asset types, all across the country, from Oregon to Washington to San Francisco to St. Louis to Atlanta, here most recently. And left the corporate world about 1 year ago, nearly to the day. I think January 9th was my last day in the corporate America. Started a multifamily media network, so a media business, really set in place to bring podcasters and different voices out to the multifamily space. So we have 20 podcasters in our network, and really our mission is to build up future leaders in the multifamily space through those voices.
That is super awesome. You have like Shelly Robinson. Hopefully she'll join today. You have some really cool, I've seen some of the folks, and no offense, Mike, but we need more women podcasters talking about real estate.
I agree.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sick of the dudes. We talk about real estate all the time. It's like, dude this, dude that, and no fault to them. They're hustling, they're doing their thing, they're putting it out there. But we do need more women voices. So I'm glad you've got Shelly at least. And I don't know who else is on your network.
Yeah, we have Mary. So on sticking to the women's side, we have Mary Gwen from Apartment Dynamics. We have Janet Rossith, who's up in Minnesota. And we have Lisi Daniels.
Cool.
We also have Vanessa Grayson. So I think we have 6, and we have somebody that's launching. I can't tell you yet, but we have somebody who's launching this month. Also,
cool. That's for sure. No, that's great. So awesome. All right, we have. Oh Lord, have mercy. All right, we're gonna get in the. I'm trying to get somebody on the show and I'm trying to multitask. So let's go through the first story, Mike, and you can start talking while I multitask while the other guests are trying to figure out how to get on the show. Outlook, dude. All right. So the first one, let's talk about themes for 2025. What do you see? I mean, last year there was a big talk around centralization of operations and a lot of different things. What do you think in 2025 the themes are going to be?
Yeah, I hesitate to say AI because I think at some point people are just going to get really allergic to the term AI. But I think I think AI started to make its way into the sort of broader ecosphere November 22, I think it was, when OpenAI came on. But I think artificial intelligence has been around for a very long time. I think that in 2026, it's going to make its way into the real estate space in a real way, in the multifamily space in a real way. I think that's going to come in the way of agents, or what they call an agentic workforce. And so I think you're going to start to see AI embedded in even a bunch of the technology that you use today, but also technology that might make its way into the space in the future. And mostly it'll be centered around the idea of being able to centralize operations or automate operations. And I think the traditional hierarchy that you see that governs multifamily is at risk. I think the idea of having flatter organizations is going to be a real thing. But I think in 25, you're going to see the stage set for that. And then I think in 26, you'll start to see that really play itself out.
Awesome sauce. And we have Jason Hull in the house.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, Jason. All right, you can unmute your mic now. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, morning. How you guys doing today? Sorry I was a couple minutes late.
It's all right. Happy New Year. You sound like you had a fun time on New Year's Eve. Did you?
No, I was we actually went to the Rose Bowl yesterday. I was a little bit late, so I'm on the West Coast. So I was a little bit behind. So sorry about the timing. I didn't realize it was. I forgot it was 7 o'clock my time. So I haven't had my coffee yet, but I'll be having it during our show.
All right. This is so awesome. You were at the Rose Bowl, of course you were. Jason,
I know that was like the beatdown of all beatdowns.
Oh, was it? I didn't even get to watch it because I was like not interested. But who won?
Ohio State won, so I took my dad. So it was a lot of fun. He's a big Ohio State guy. Grew up in Ohio, so we had a good time. But we had a good time. It was good.
All right, and Guillermo's in the house too. Look at this. We got full house.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. All right.
You caught me post-workout deep into a jigsaw puzzle. So I'm glad you pinged me because I was in the throes of trying to match up the foliage of a bird in a winter setting.
Whoa. That sounds challenging.
Right. Well,
Happy New Year's, everybody.
Happy New Year's. Very cool. All right. So, Jason, introduce yourself, buddy. You didn't introduce yourself yet.
Yeah. So real quick. So Jason Hall, I do a lot of capital markets activities through Fannie, Freddie. I do a lot of HUD, do some construction loans, do pretty much all capital markets to help people execute their business plan in let's just call it anything that has to do with the residential space. Don't do single family homes. We do a lot of build for rent, other activities like that. So anything that kind of goes on in that world. Also do a lot of work in land game as well. Helps the folks on the equity side. So always kind of in the mix on the real estate world, helping my clients kind of execute their business plan. And mostly everything, like I said before, has to do with anything that's in a residential apartment, senior housing, living space. Let's call it that, right?
Yeah. And he's very scruffy, and so that's why he's not on camera. We're just glad to have Jason here because I always like to have a lender in the house. And we have a really cool story that came out at 6:30 this morning that we're going to go over. But we'll let Guillermo introduce himself. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, good to see you. Happy New Year, everybody. I wish everybody the best in 2025. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. I'm the CEO at IRCX. We're a telemaintenance solution, helps companies centralize maintenance in one day. That's the long and short of it. My background, 25 years centralizing major industry, above ground mining, below ground mining, nuclear, transportation, all sorts of stuff. And kind of bringing that background into solving problems in multifamily and single family. So, pretty excited to have this conversation. And obviously it's been an incredible year for these kind of conversations. And so it's always fun to mix in the news with the sales applications, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So first story, I'm so glad Jason is here. This came out and we'll kind of go through it, but this came out at 6:30 this morning where Bill Ackman, who runs a hedge fund called Pershing Square, speculated on X that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac could come out of conservatorship in the first years of the Trump administration. They're going to take them private. What is that going to do, Jason, if anything happens, if they take Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac private? Have you even read this story? He's probably like, Amy.
Can they?
I have not. I have not read that story. Listen, I have not read that story, but people talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
It was like that, I think, back in the day, but who knows? I mean, I don't think that's really going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, Fannie and Freddie solve a problem for affordability in America, and they also solve a problem with kind of clearing the market where the banks are not there, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't see them coming out. They might come out of conservatorship. They might not. I mean, I don't know if that really is going to make that big of a difference. I mean, they do operate to make a profit today. So it's not like they don't do loan. We don't execute under the Fannie and Freddie platforms because they want to lose money, right? So they still make money. So it's not like they're losing money to make loans. And I think that's what you might be getting at, saying that, okay, if they're losing money, then they'll execute their business a little bit differently. I don't think, if it came out of conservatorship, I don't know if it would make that much of a difference, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, so what protects it? I mean, in its state that it's now, does it allow it to do the loans that it does, or it doesn't matter?
I mean, look how the loans are executed anyways, right? Like the loans are executed in the let's call it the financial markets, right? They're securitized the packages, people buy them, they buy the A pieces and B pieces. If you look at Fannie Mae, they're sold to individual investors. I mean, they're executed in the capital markets world today already. So what would be the biggest? How's it going to change the execution of the platform? It's not going to change that much. I mean, maybe they're going to have to make more profit than they make today, but they still make a profit.
Well, if they go private, then are they going to IPO? Is it going to be something that boosts the
your
market?
guess is as good as mine, but I would just say that I think people talk about it all the time. And I think that at the end of the day, there's obviously more to it than what I know, and then maybe the folks on the phone have a little, or the folks on the show have a little bit more idea behind it. But I look at it as it's already executing in the capital market space. It's already, they do execute their platform for a profit. I mean, we're not giving away loans at 450 right now. We're giving away loans at the market rate of what makes the most sense, right? What can be executed on.
Right. No, I got you. Interesting.
I'm curious, like these kind of conversations, come up every election, and it's like, what's the problem they're trying to solve by taking them private? Like, because they solve a problem right now in the market, and they were established a long time ago, and they're very effective at solving the problem around affordability and first mortgages and all that stuff. I don't know. I also find it interesting that Bill Ackerman's saying it, because how does an activist investor, this would not be a good target for him, right? Because then to turn around Freddie and Fannie would be contrary to the objectives of those institutions. And thirdly, this needs Congress approval to become private. Congress is pretty busy with other things in the first year that I just don't see that they're going to make time for this kind of like all the whipping that would have to happen to be able to get this through Congress would just, I
think your points are right too. I think it's already working. It's not like something that's majorly broken, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree with you. I don't even know why people bring it up all the time. And, obviously it's odd to me that people focus on that when there's a million other places to focus that you can save money.
It sounds bored.
I agree.
Maybe he's bored. He should get a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. That's right. A really hard one.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I talked to a friend of mine who is I can't say his name because it would give it away, but he's at a very large lending, a law firm that does focus on finance. And he told me that he was like, Amy, we are so freaking busy. He goes, I had to work through Christmas and there's so many transactions happening. And I'm sure Jason's doing most of the loans, but he's like, there's so many transactions happening right now and I think it's because people were teed up or they were waiting or whatever what they were waiting for is starting to happen. So when he starts to get busy, we're not seeing that in the news, right? So we'll start seeing next quarter, we'll see all these transactions that started to happen and other things. So I think it's a good time. I mean, the Fed dropped the rate again for the third consecutive. That was on the 18th. They gave us a Christmas present. They dropped the rate. Everybody was expecting to drop the rate, so there was no big bump afterwards, but still it was 3 consecutive times that they dropped the rate. Now, no one knows what they're going to do next year. Anybody want a crystal ball that one? Do you think they keep dropping the rates, Mike? Do you think they keep dropping it? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I know. I don't know, but
I mean, I think that. So here's my Guillermo's opinion.
Guillermo, the ex-consultant, by the way. You've done so good. There's not been one acronym that I've heard yet.
Or 2 by 2.
Oh, yes, exactly.
I've been pretty good this year. I do have to do my goal setting for the year, though. But here, I think that the purpose of lowering interest rates, right, be to stimulate the economy, and the buffer against that is inflation. And so what I think we're going to see is he's got to get. I think that we are going to want to see interest rates drop in 2025, but to do that, inflation's got to be curbed, and to do that, we've got to get the price of oil between $55 and $75 an barrel. So if we get a stable price of oil between 55 and say 65, which I mean, where I come from, that's not great news, but let's say between it hovers around $65 a barrel.
Yep.
If it hovers around there, nice and stable, maybe even dipping between 60 and 65. That'll bring down inflation enough that will be okay to be able to lower interest rates, because they want to, and every administration wants to lower administrations, but the buffer is against inflation, and so inflation has been a problem. It's affordability of just even your basic groceries is out of hand. But and so the price of energy inputs is affecting that inflation, and the easiest thing to do is lower the price of oil by raising production. or helping it out other places, and then we can get inflation down a little bit. Then you can lower interest rates. So how's that for an answer?
There
Yes.
you go. I don't know, Mike. Okay.
Yeah, I like that as an answer. You know, it's not on the same topic, but maybe it is the same topic. I'm interested, maybe in Jason's opinion, you know, as it relates to commitments or loans that are coming due. I don't know what the number is, but I've heard it's very big. And there has been the propensity by lending institutions sort of kick the can down the road, as they say. But at some point you have to stop kicking the can down the road, and you have to come to the realization that those loans are not going to perform. And what happens then? Or when does that happen, and what happens then?
If you want my opinion on that one, I think the easiest way to look at this is like, so I went through the downturn in the 2007 to 12, right? Just like most people on this phone did. Mm-hmm. And you had to get rid of loans, you had to mark to market, you had to sell loans because it was all, you know, it was all through the banks, and the banks have regulations that force them into executing a plan or selling these loans. Today, most all the loans that are held that are in default or have some kind of issues are with the debt funds. Like there's trillions and trillions of dollars for the debt funds. I mean, if you look at the banks, they're in pretty good shape. If you look at Fannie and Freddie, they're in really good shape. And the debt funds are raising new money to basically put out more loans, and they're not regulated by anybody. So they can kick the can as long as they possibly want. And so what we're seeing is we're not seeing a lot of defaults. We're not seeing a lot of defaults through these debt funds, because if you see that if the debt funds default or put something in foreclosure, what also happens is that their credit facilities force them to buy these loans back. So it's kind of like this. And then here's the other kicker to it too, is that if you're in default and somebody forecloses on you, then you cannot get a Fannie and Freddie loan. And so most of these debt funds see Fannie and Freddie as the exit. So if they put people in default, if they foreclose on them, then that individual operator cannot get a Fannie and Freddie loan. And then at the same time, the debt funds want to get that off their books. I would say that the only deals that you're seeing that somebody is foreclosing somebody out or pushing somebody out the door is somebody that is not a good operator. A lot of the other deals that are good operators that are more getting hit by maybe cap rates going up a little bit or interest rates going up a little bit, the debt funds and are working with them, right? Like, so that you're not seeing a lot of foreclosures. You're seeing the can getting kicked down the road because, quite frankly, there's, a lot of the folks that have these loans are allowed to do that. I mean, they're their loans, right? They're not regulated by anybody that's making them do that besides their investors.
That is super insightful. So then they could also, if there's like some sort of private credit or mezz or bridge debt, that private lender then they'll be happy to sell that to them to help them get further down the road. But where Freddie or Fannie wouldn't allow you to do that, right? I mean, they get a little heartburn over any sort of second position or third position on a debt, but a debt fund might not care, or they might, right? I don't know, Jason. You tell me, buddy.
No, I think you nailed that. I mean, I think people can make their own decisions in that world. They're not regulated by anything but their investors and their own returns.
Yeah.
I mean, Jason, I'd look at your take on this. It's my understanding the last thing a bank wants to be is in the building business. Right. And so they'll do whatever it takes they want to be bankers, not builders. And so here's what I've heard. And I need you to correct me on this because I don't course correct or however influences this opinion. It's like, if there's an eye to lower interest rates, which makes the paper good in Q3, right? Can we just slap a little bit of a variable with a push out on the amortization period to try and make the payments paper? And then we'll deal with it in Q3. Is that kind of an approach to solving the problem in the short term?
I think that's the approach to solving the problem with the debt funds. But if you look at the banking world, there's not a lot of issues in the banking world, right? So a lot of the issues are with the debt funds, which has mostly 2 to 3 year paper. So amortization is not really going to solve the payment issues. It's more of just extending the loans, right?
Yeah, it's just about cash flow in the short term.
Right, exactly. But it's also sometimes that it's also dependent upon did they execute the business plan? Is the business plan behind?
Right.
Are they on target? Is it more expensive? Is it not more expensive? Things like that, right? We had a call with some good friends of ours the other day. We're working on some refinances for them, and they're $5 to $10 million short on a bunch of loans, and they've executed a business plan. They're just concessions are strong in the marketplace, right? So they're just they're hitting their numbers on rates, on rents, but they're not hitting their numbers on concessions, and so they're just waiting for the market to kind of catch up. But they'll get there. Just take a little bit more time.
So yeah, so which makes, and I think most people might be hitting their numbers on occupancy and numbers on rents, but the expense side is just eating their lunch. I mean, it's just there's no way you could have planned for 4x on an insurance premium, right? There's no way you could have planned for your all of the everything else, your payroll, your repairs and maintenance, and everything else to kind of go to 3x or 4x. I don't think anybody. Now we knew the interest rates are going to rise, but just I don't buy that inflation's at 2%. No one feels 2%. No one is feeling that. They're feeling.
No, we bought broccoli lately. It's like $9 a bunch. It's like
or eggs.
Or eggs. Yeah.
Who is saying it's 2%? Like, I don't understand that. Every day I feel 20 to 30 times what I was just like, oh my God, this is awful. Like maybe I'm going to go buy a car.
We had to cut the celery out of our Caesars. It's austerity.
Oh my Lord, have mercy! That is crazy town. I don't know. All right, let's go to the next story, which this will be good for multifamily. So the next story, we're talking about how renters are staying longer. And this was really good. So this last decade versus the decade before, on every age group, the only one is the Gen Zers. They're like hopping every year or whatever it might be. But the baby boomers are staying longer. Everybody's staying longer. All those age groups, it upticked. So this is good news for the multifamily industry. You can rent one time and they're going to hang out for 5 to 7 years. And we're not used to doing those turns as often. That'd be really cool. But how does that change the strategy? I mean, your CapEx, when you go acquire, now is going to be, okay, we need to improve. We need to do more capital improvements because we're not going to get to them where there's not going to be as many turns. So we're not going to be able to get through those value add deals. That'll change, don't you think, Mike?
Yeah, I definitely think it would, unless you're one of those risk takers and you sort of force the vacancy to do your renovations.
Yeah.
But if you're getting the rent bumps without doing the renovations, then
Why
what's the incentive to do that?
Right.
Look, I think that's obviously the price of housing, I think, is driving this sort of uptick in staying longer. People just can't afford to buy homes, especially younger generations can't afford to buy homes. And I mean, as an operator, I love it.
Yeah.
I think that to the extent that we can hang on to people, what I sort of juxtapose that against is the point that you just made about expenses rising in where you're cutting on the expense side of multifamily is potentially putting the resident experience at risk or even the team member experience at risk. And so you've got to hedge for that in a way. You can't let that diminish and maybe offset this opportunity to keep people longer term.
For sure.
Mike, I've got a question for you. Like, who's like, you talked about any interest in insurance, right? All below the line expenses that have gone up so high. Like, who's in charge of managing, generally speaking, like the NOI operating piece? Okay, that's easy, right? That's the operators. But like, generally speaking, because you're seeing Greystar offer insurance, rebates and packages, et cetera. Like, who is responsible for that part of the P&L? Like, because like we've all been focused on NOI for whatever, a lifetime, but then and that's your revenue less your operating expenses, less your kind of like other stuff. And then there's your NOI number, and then you've got insurance, and then you've got taxes, and then you've got all that stuff. Taxes have gone up, insurance has gone up, interest has gone up, everything is below the line. So like, is it beyond the asset managers, like who has power to manage and negotiate that stuff on a quarter by quarter basis?
I think risk managers, sometimes it's risk managers and asset managers. So risk managers on the insurance side, and then asset managers certainly on the tax side, appealing as often as you can, right? But
those are kind of non-negotiables and fixed expenses, right?
I hate to correct you, Guillermo, but insurance and taxes isn't below the line.
Yeah, it's
mortgage is below the line.
Below the NOI line?
Yeah. Insurance and taxes. Yeah, insurance and taxes are operating expenses. So,
okay. But to your point, they're a little less controllable.
Yeah, they're less controllable, but it's still, that's why everybody's getting hurt, is because they had no idea the insurance was going to go or the taxes. That's been going up, and everybody could kind of mitigate, but the insurance was the big oh, you know, that we
Right.
didn't have any idea. It was killing deals and all the other things that we had no idea that was going to happen. But also below the line, you have, I mean, you can only offset depreciation amortization so much. And that was like the big thing back in the day, was like, that's why real multifamily investing was so cool, is because I got a negative tax return every year just from, you know, those paper losses and all that other stuff, and the bonus depreciation and all that other stuff. And now we're getting losses because we're really not making any damn money. Like, you know, we're getting like, you know, I get a negative K1 that's really low, and I'm not getting into distributions, you know, that, you know, it's kind of like really interesting for sure. But I think the insurance, and I think if we go back, circle it back to AI, I think that's where that we get the biggest boon in AI on the insurance side, because now the insurance underwriters aren't guessing anymore. They can get really good property valuations, get really good insights on, as more and more building data becomes available, that where they don't have to guess, and they can really good insights around climate resilience and what would happen, and very property specific by using AI. I think that's so. I think if we have any hope of anything in multifamily, is that the interest bill comes down, because they can really accurately underwrite a building. You know,
so then would that kind of like, you know, given that expense, does that then kind of like say, okay, the Midwest is becoming a much more profitable investment segment versus the traditional, well, I mean, I'll say Florida and California. California, Florida, forget it, right? Insurance is off it's gone crazy. Mike, that's right. That's a personal pain. Yeah. But like, does that mean the Midwest is the Midwest or Texas? I mean, well, yeah. I mean, Texas, I don't know what the situations there on insurance.
Oh, the largest insurer pulled out, and that was 3 years ago. Yeah. They pulled out of the state. We stopped issuing, and they stopped renewing. They just pulled out of the state. And it's interesting. And it was allowed like kind of during COVID, but it was in 2021 was when that happened.
What's the rationale for Texas? I mean, I don't see any highlight. I mean, other than tornado and
tornadoes and hurricanes, and, you know, COVID and people staying home. I think it's just, they had a lot of snowpocalypse. It was right during that snowpocalypse time, and they had a lot of claims in that area. Maybe they came back in. I don't know.
I mean, from a just a casual news follower, I mean, obviously Florida and California grabbed the headlines.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, cocktail party information. You kind of like, okay, that makes sense. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me in Texas, but I don't know much about that market. I don't know that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I'm with you there. But if we can figure out, I mean, I guess this whole renters staying longer thing, hopefully will.
Yeah, so to that point, like, I'd be curious, is that data, like, how's that segmented? Like, is it because SFR obviously stays longer than multifamily?
Yeah.
So is it? I'd be curious to see how pure multifamily has moved versus the kind of SFR or BTR segment. Because you could look at saying, okay, there's that many more BTR, SFR renters. Let's say there's 1 million of them, and of those, they're staying on average 6 or 7 years, and then of the other, I don't know, 40 million, I guess, in the multifamily side, I guess those numbers wouldn't change it. No, I think
it's not material. It doesn't say. The article is in Globe Street, and it was this morning at 6:29 a.m. And Philippa wrote it, Philippa Meister. It doesn't say, but it does say that the Denver, Austin, my hometown, and Salt Lake City have the most short-term renters. So, but yeah, it doesn't segment by housing type. So,
but now that I think about it, I don't know if that would make a difference. It's just not enough.
Yeah.
How much more? Sorry, because I was not scanning the news this morning. How much longer are they staying?
It's talking about, it doesn't give you a link, but it just say, okay, for the people generally. All right. So let me read it. So, 33%, it talks about 33% of the U.S. renters have lived in the same home for at least 5 years, right? That's according to Redfin. And it goes through and talks about, and 17% of the renters have stayed for 5 to 9, and then 16% have stayed to 10 years or more. And then all of those categories of those have all increased. So that's what it's talking about. So
does that sound like apartment to you, or is that something like single family?
It doesn't say. It doesn't
No,
say.
does it
But what
sound, no, just your gut instinct. Does that sound single family to you?
I would say for me, I would say that's single family. I mean, I think
There's no planet that's multifamily apartment.
Yes,
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the single family and the fact that there was a build to rent boom and people just kind of hang, but I think it's generally, and that's why everybody was going to build to rent, right? Because build to rent, the average renter stays for, 7 to 8 years,
7 to
right?
8 years.
Yeah,
Yep.
they stay. And so that was the whole key to doing build to rent way back in the day. That, and you could get multifamily financing for it. And so that was like the perfect storm.
The innovation.
Yeah, exactly. Because people hang out longer. You build a brand new house. You don't have a lot of maintenance. It's like.
That's great. Well, I mean, I think that the ability to exit the equity in your current residence and then give that money to your kids for a down payment, or at least put that somewhere else, like makes good sense. Like I totally get that. I think we could. I mean, I could speculate, but it'd be probably dangerous in a live show on why. But I think there's, if you think about those that are, I'll just put it kind of like the narrative that I've kind of got in my head for like my kids, right? My kids are probably going to rent a house first.
Oh yeah.
And they're going to save their money, and then hopefully they'll buy a house. They'll be able to buy a house at some point in time in their adulthood. And so like, I have to think that's part of the equation is people saving to buy a home.
It could be. I mean, for sure. Even though because just obviously the interest rates are still higher than it used to be, and everybody has to save more. And this whole
renting is a way better deal than home ownership right now. It's a better deal. I saw a really good chart that came out just before Christmas, and it was like, it might have been Jay
Parsons.
Parsons, thank you. They did it. Just talking about the renting is a way better deal than owning right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially because especially from the insurance and a property tax perspective.
Everything, right? Maintenance, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
My oldest son is 28 years old. And the only reason he knows how to do anything around the house is because I had him working on my multifamily apartments, going and fixing the HVACs and right? But can you imagine all his friends don't know a lick about, there's a leak. They're like, I don't know what to do. Like they have no clue.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about a generation of soft people, I mean, this too early in the morning to have that conversation.
I can't imagine. I don't know. So I have to go back to Jason because I don't know if y'all know this, but Jason's so cool. Jason's like he's like a legend in the industry. But I remember hanging out with Jason one time. He's like, "Yeah, I used to be a plumber." I was like, "No way! Now you're even cooler," which is super awesome. But Jason, do your kids? Do you have like 23, 24-year-olds? Like,
my kids are 23. My kids are 19, 21, and 23. Yes, I'm in the throes of everything that you talked about. Sure.
I know, right? Can you imagine them buying a house right now? Like,
I think like one of my friends in on the West Coast sold his house in San Diego and bought 3 of them in Boise so that he could have all his kids be near him.
Right.
Really? Wow.
I mean, because you can, if you look at like some of the markets that, like I lived in San Diego for, a long, long time. And it's, home ownership is so out of reach in those markets. Like people, I think my kids will be renters unless they live in, some other places that are very inexpensive. They'll be renters for a majority of their lives. Right.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I mean, look at the markets that we all live in and look at the place. I mean, depending on where you are, but how many people can afford $1 million house every day, right? Or $750,000 house, or it gets really expensive. Wages haven't kept up with some of those costs, right?
For sure.
I mean, I had a good conversation. It might have been with you, Amy.
I mean, the good thing is that I'm sponsored to be on the show, so I can afford a couple extra houses for him now. Wait, you guys didn't get your contracts signed? Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So call me afterwards. I'll tell you. I'll give you the secrets.
I mean, Jason, I'd be curious to hear your take. Like, how much institutional capital is now in the residential, let's say the single family residential market?
Mm.
I don't play in single family residential. I play in the build for rent. So we do like just the agencies finance that and things of that nature. But I mean, if you look at it, it's all gone to the big institutions. I mean, I don't know the exact answer to that, but the only thing I would say is if you look at, the big players of the world, they're all in it. So that just tells you that in itself, right? The data
Like, it's one
shows
thing
you.
to keep up with
The
it.
data.
It's one
I think the
thing-
data. I think the data shows you that it's exactly what we all think, because those guys are more data driven than any of us, and they know more than most of us too, right? So
Yeah,
and they're in it in a very big way.
I heard the expression at SFR West, like it's one thing to keep up with the Joneses, but try keeping up to Brookfield.
That's there you go. There you go. Great. That's a great comment. I love that.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
what's that going to do to you?
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, so couple more news stories we'll go through. All right, so this is all good news, but apparently everybody's thinking in 2025 that multifamily is the place to be, y'all. Like it's going to lead CRE. There's a Colliers. Who knows if Colliers knows what they're talking about, but they're saying because of Gen Z, there's strong demand that multifamily is going to set the pace in the commercial real estate industry. What do we think in 2025? You think it's going to be multifamily is going to be the darling again?
It's definitely not going to be office.
Yeah. That's it. There's the bar. It's not going to be office.
No, it's not.
Maybe office converted to data centers might rival multifamily.
Yeah, see, that doesn't happen either. It can't, right? So that's the hardest part. Like if you talk about office, it can't be data centers because they don't have the structural load. Have all those servers on those floors.
Find people are going to make a lot more money in other spaces where there's not as many people, there's not as many financing options.
Lost you, buddy. I don't know if you're moving. He's probably out. It's Rose Bowl. He's out in California.
There's a lot of other places that you probably can get better returns, right?
Yeah. Other than so you cut out for a second. So say that again, bud.
Oh, I was just saying. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, you're good.
I was just saying that at the end of the day, I think you said darling, but what does darling mean? Like, what do you say, darling? What does that mean? Like best returns, or everybody wants to be in it? There's a big difference between what darling means.
Oh, well, okay. So, doesn't everybody want to be in it because of the returns? Isn't that equate? Or are you talking about they're doing it for a safer investment? I don't know. I mean, not everybody can go buy a data center. Like that's not easy. Let's be real. That's the industry that I focus on is the data center industry. Not everybody's buying those. They would love to buy those, right? But they don't know how to run them. They don't. It's kind of might be easier to run or learn how to run. That's why all those guru groups exist.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. So I think that the multifamily space is going to stay the way it is today, but I do think that there's a lot of capital chasing it, and I think next year there's going to be a lot of less players in the space. So I think pricing and things like that will have to adjust in some form or fashion, right?
Oh, you think there's going to be less players? Well, there's going to be a lot of people that get their butts handed to them that bought B and C and at the wrong time, right? There's nothing you could do to save that. That's where everybody, there was an entry point for a lot of the newer multifamily investors was let's go buy a Class C property and let's make it prettier to be a B-, and then let's make money. That's what I did. I did that forever. I was a value add girl, but yeah, that everybody who did that in 2021 thinking it's all going to be great now are like defaulting on their loans, right? So, which sucks because it is what it is. The caps ran out, their interest only periods ran out, everything ran out. So now, but what do we do with those from, can't rebuild everything. You can't do covered land plays on everything because it's way too expensive now. So what do we do with those assets? Where they just change hands? They go back to the banks? I don't know what happens. There's a lot of those.
You mean the C's in the office, or what do you mean? Which ones are you asking about?
I'm talking about multifamily. I'm talking about multifamily. They bought Class B, Class C multifamily stuff, right? And
they go affordable.
Maybe you can't convert everything into affordable though. It's pretty tough. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Jason, is there private credit that's coming out now to like kind of save these folks, like where they're adding? Have you seen, 2020, 2021 is the age of the bridge lender. Is that coming
No,
back?
I think it's the age of. I think a lot of people are just. I think you've seen a lot of entrants into the pref space, like the preferred equity space. I think that's where the entrants are playing today to try to help save folks is in the pref equity space. That's where we're seeing a lot of people playing there.
Oh, are you? Okay. Well, that's kind of private credit, I guess.
I mean, there's a ton of debt funds that are playing. There's a ton, but I think the pref equity is getting more expansive. But I think at the end of the day, that's not too much has changed besides those couple things.
So 3-4 years from now, they're betting on the fact that the interest rates will come down. These people will be able to refi. The inflation will come down because that pref equity stuff is 2 years max usually, right? Or is it? I don't know.
No, I mean most of pref is for the life is usually it's 2 to 3 years, but most of the lenders require that pref come in at the. So if you do pref with the agencies, they require pref to be the same length as the loan. But like a lot of the pref that's in the debt funds is 2 to 3 year pref. Right. So that will come due. I mean, everything will come due at some point in time. I mean, if you look at the debt fund world, like we were talking about earlier, they're extending because of the reasons that we mentioned. Pref is not going to extend. Pref will just take the property back themselves at a different basis. So that will actually create some liquidity in the marketplace and create a different atmosphere.
Yeah, for sure. So be careful who you get in bed with. That's all we got to say about that. I have no idea. All right, let's talk about one more topic. So office, we're back to office. It's, multifamily can be better than that. But now there's more and more office to multifamily conversions, which always sound like brain damage to me. But apparently the office price point is so damn low that actually makes sense. Anybody seeing any of those? I know our buddy Kitty Wolf, Jason, was doing those way back in the day. You seeing any more?
Kenny was actually, here's a really interesting fact on that. Is that Kenny Wolf was doing it. He was doing a great job doing it too, but he also has some issues. But he was buying his properties without the construction loan in hand. So that's where he got hurt the most.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I just had a conversation the other day with a very big fund called $1 billion fund that came to me and they said, "Hey Jason, one of our allocations," and so if anybody has these, give me a call. I can kind of get us all together because I actually have a call today on this. Is they said we have a big allocation in our next fund that we need to do 25% of the fund. So let's just call it $1 billion fund, 250 million of equity leveraged in the office to apartment conversion space. And I was like, really? And so I think, like you said, one of our good friends that was doing this, had some issues, ran into some troubles, but he was a little early to the space, but he's still in that space. And people are still getting good returns to that space because they're working with the cities, municipalities to get, tax abatements. They have different incentives because people want to turn these older office buildings into nicer, newer into something that's useful for the community and that they're getting taxes from. So I think you're going to see more people digging into that. And if you look in Washington, D.C. alone, there's a couple operators that I work with there that have a couple thousand. Oh, I don't even know how to explain it, but maybe I don't know how many square feet they own of office that they're going to convert, but they have thousands of units and buildings that they're planning across the city that they think is going to be, very impactful to their bottom line and and to what they're doing in the future. So I think that space is definitely something that's going to keep evolving, but it's not an easy space to play in because it's not like a B or C deal where you add add a new kitchen or you add new flooring and you could rent it for more. I mean, it's all about floor plates. I think it's a lot more intensive. It's like a new development without having to build a new building to some extent, right?
Yeah, have you seen it done repeatedly well? Like I'm fascinated by it.
It all comes down to floor plate prints, and also I've seen it done really well. Like Atlanta has a couple really nice ones. I went and toured a bunch there for a while. There's some really nice historic buildings that have been done into office to into apartment conversion. So I've seen some really good stuff. And then some of the older buildings, people are using historic tax credits. So there's a way to do it. I think that it really comes down to how do you put your capital stack together? Because as we all know, whenever you start, peeling back the onion on any type of transaction, especially something that's a whole building, you're going to encumber a lot of contingency issues that you're not expecting.
Like I stayed in a Sonder. You guys know Sonder? It's like Airbnb. I stayed in a Sonder in Dallas, and I didn't know it was a conversion, but as I was kind of like staying on this space, I was like, this is so weird. Like It's like
That could
everything
happen too, right?
Everything is zig that should be zag, and it's just like just like it just felt like everything was all kind of like it was all, I just haven't seen it really done really well. And
I think you hit the nail on the head, which is it's to be determined, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to see.
But Sonder has that. Sonder does that because Sonder does a lot of like short term. I guess they've had their issues too, but I think they've gone up and down on a couple of different things. But if you look at it though too, is like a lot of them might not have parking, and so I think that's where folks like Sonder play a vital role, right? Maybe that's the way they look at that. I don't know.
It's we've got a building here. It's like 40 stories, and the lights are off. Ooh. And it's got asbestos in it, and so they're like, no one wants to go near it.
Yeah, for sure, right? That's a huge, unless they get it for free. Anybody, any price. I mean, when you get it for free, a lot of people will chase it.
But who's paying for that? Taxpayers, right?
The taxpayers are, and that's what is going to happen. That's why all these tax incentives and the governments play this huge role. I think that's the biggest thing is in the office to residential commercial. It's going
to be tax incentives, historical tax credits, abatements, things like that. I mean, it's going to be like a different version of some HFCs and stuff like that, right? That's the only way to make it. That's the only way to make it.
We're seeing on the multifamily side here is that multifamily is getting so many the purpose-built rentals, I should say, purpose-built rentals, like where you've designated as a rental when you started. They are having a huge amount of tax credits to build purpose-built rentals, because that's the solution here. Is there's more rentals. And so you're seeing. I mean, and this might sound crazy to you, especially in Florida and Austin, but like, they're seeing approvals up to 13 stories on wood frame. Oh. Yeah, exactly. I was looking for that. I was looking for that expression, but yeah, 13 stories in a wood frame, right?
No way. No way.
I mean, and this is a windy city. It's not
how on earth
you can just feel the rocky.
Yeah, you can't. You have to go steal. You can't go steal. I mean, you can't build.
It's funny. It's funny. You see the skeletons for them, and it's just elevator shafts made of concrete, and then stairwells, elevator shafts, stairwells, and then sticks.
That is crazy town. Crazy town. I don't know.
They can put them up fast, and it's just like, oh boy.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it wouldn't fly, obviously, in Florida.
There's that thing. They should look at Florida and like Sandy, where they like collapsed and stuff. They should look.
Yeah. Well,
that was all stick built in. That wasn't even that tall, and it fell.
I mean, it's regional construction rules, but it's just like I don't feel good about it.
No, I woun't either. Unless I don't know.
But it's solving the problem, right? I mean, it's solving the problem with respect to getting things out there fast. And concrete's really expensive, and you think about it, like when they go with the stick frame, they can position it as being more environmental, right? Because it doesn't have the concrete.
That is some malarkey, because those things long term just leak stuff.
Well, again,
all right.
Other people's solutions. It's what happens when you put the incentives in front of things.
Yeah, that's true. But I think, and we get the office to residential stuff. I mean, if you look at it, if somebody can figure out just the mechanical alone, the mechanical and plumbing, that's what the big, other than, is the water main big enough to support a residential site there, right? Supporting an office is one thing, but supporting like 1,000 units or 200 units, depending on how big the office building is, those water mains are different. I mean, you had a plumbing on one floor versus plumbing in every unit, right? And so you have all this different infrastructure side, but it's crazy town.
I do think, I mean, to Jason's point, those that can figure it out, they'll make a lot of money.
Yeah. So we have someone who have a question on talking about hospitality in a multifamily. What do we think about the hospitality in multifamily? I just don't think there's enough available hotels out there. I think they kind of weathered the storm. Have you seen it? Thanks, Susan, for the question. No?
I've not seen too many of those. A handful, maybe.
Yeah.
But not even recently.
Not even recently. I remember it was COVID. We saw COVID, right? Those are easier for sure, but there's just not a large inventory of hospitality, I don't think. Jason?
Hotels are a desirable asset class.
Yeah. Well, now they are. I mean, COVID wasn't, right? Yeah. But now it's not bad. But I mean, if you could find one, I'm sure people would hop on it. If you found a hotel that ran into the ground, but I can't imagine there is too many now. But yeah, there was back in the day. Back in COVID, that was the thing. If you could find one that, especially an extended stay, they get all basically you're not doing anything. They're all just studios. And then you just turn it into a multifamily unit versus the other. But then you had to deal with zoning. The only thing you had to deal with it was zoning because they already had the kitchens in there. They already had a bathroom and it was a studio, right?
Yeah.
Those were nice for sure. It's really interesting. Yeah. Oh, Caliber's doing one, Susan. That's awesome. Very cool.
That's cool.
That is super cool. Yeah. Good for them, man. I'd love to hop on.
If you can do it right, there's plenty to do.
Yeah. For sure. I just think, and then the whole other, okay, let's move on to the next story, which we're talking about, which is super interesting, is how do we think there's the condos and how there's more and more condos and condo development happening, and it's interesting to see the condo resurgence. I don't know what that is. What do we like? I don't know. I haven't heard of condos in forever and a day, but now it seems like all we hear about are condos. And what is it? Does anyone know what the condo resurgence is?
How do you mean? I think it's just a financing play.
You think so? You think it's just
easier? So like Canada as a whole as a market is really far behind the US in terms of like multifamily ownership. And the market here is principally condo ownership. And then it's just starting to come around to kind of like classic institutional investment in the multifamily building. And so the condo model is kind of like fractional ownership. Like it's, I mean, you think about it in terms of like a financing play, like you get to the, let's just kind of like parallel the expressions, right? Like you pre-sell it in pre-con, right? You get to like a lease up number, that's effectively the same as a pre-sale on a pre-con. You sell it all out. And then you go and you build then you get all your final approvals and you push the ground. And as all you've got to do is ensure the deposits on those pre-construction amounts. Then you hold them, let's say 30% investors, 30% non-resident investors. They kind of fund the startup. It gets built. Then you resell the rest of it out to people that'll be residents or owner residents. And then the rest of it, and then you hire a condo management company. Like
I know.
It's fractional ownership.
It's crazy. Now, I think in Texas, it wasn't a thing, and maybe that's my frame of reference because way back in the day, the architects stopped building them because these lawyers would go sue. Like as soon as the condo was built, this was like the big thing. I talked to my friend. I'll name drop. His name is Kip Schecht, and he's at Pfluger Architects. But back in the day, he was like, Amy, I'm never designing a condo, and I was like, blah, 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 and I was doing the whole thing, the whole business plan. It makes more money and you can sell them and do all this other stuff. He goes, yeah. I go, and in about 5 years, we're going to get sued.
Why would they get sued?
Because because they would find a manufacturer's blemish or whatever. You have like so many years. And so there was these enterprising lawyers that would go out and then they would sue them. My dad, for the builders, for the build, something for structural. Yeah, or whatever, anything. It could be like the granite color was wrong or whatever it might be. And so they started getting sued and they started getting, and so, but in Texas, that law changed. And so now they can't do that. There's like a limitation on a lot of that stuff. So condos you're starting to see more of them, but for a long time in Texas, there weren't any condos. There just no new condos were getting built. But now
it's a great way to kind of, if you're starting to syndicate, I mean, you could syndicate or you can condo a building.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, why not syndicate it or condo it, and everyone feels like they got a piece of paper that says they own something, and I only get it 402, and then you just manage it and deduct your condo fees and property management expenses, and then give everybody out the net.
Yeah, no, I got you for
it's
sure.
But I mean, it's just more. I think it's just a different way of finding these things.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too is if you look at some markets, I mean, you can sell a condo for twice what you can sell an apartment for, right? So that's just, I think, a piece of it. But hey, Amy, I got to jump on. I got at 8 o'clock.
Oh, you're fine.
So it was good. Listen, it was nice meeting everybody. Good talking with everybody. And I'm sorry I was a little late, but enjoyed the discussion. Sounds like we got a lot of smart people on this call, a lot smarter than me. So, hopefully we all find some ways to help each other work together. And if you need anything, Amy knows where to find me. So have a great, happy holidays, and I'll catch up with you guys later.
All right. See you, Jason.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, well, look, we're almost we are at the top of the hour. Look at that, three-handed down cursor. All right, we'll do parting thoughts. Jason already did his. So, Mike, what are you thinking? 2025 multifamily. What do you think?
I think we're going to see the agentic workforce make itself into multifamily in a real way.
Oh, that was mine.
That's going to happen.
It's going to happen. All right. So define that for people. So explain that for people.
Well, I think we're going to have, well, this may be a far reaching vision, but I think everybody's going to have their own personal digital agent or co-pilot that goes out and harvests data for them and helps them in a decision-making process. And I think companies are also going to have their version of that. And so companies are going to have agents, and our personal agents are going to interact with those agents and come to conclusions for us, and we'll be free to go and do other stuff.
We're going to be all on beaches and hammocks, and the AI is going to rule the world.
Wally, we're going to be Wally.
Wally. My AI agent is going to talk to the other AI agent, and they're going to broker a deal, and then I'm going to go find a place to live.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
No.
So I think that will, I don't know if people are ready to buy that yet.
Yeah.
I do believe that we're going to see agents in our non-multifamily world. So I'll put it this way. So I'm with you, Mike, 100%. We're building a company around that, right? But I think that what we're going to see is that there's hesitation to buy it because of I'll say the vulnerability in the resident experience right now. Mm-hmm. So I do think this will be the year of the outsource. Mm-hmm. And then 2026 will be the year of the agent, and specifically in multifamily, because we've already outsourced in the rest of our consumer experience, almost every other one of these kind of I'll call them low value touch points, repetitive low value touch points. Yep. And I feel like we have to outsource first so that we can figure out what's repeatable that we can put into the agent and collect the data around it. So we're on the roadmap to the agent experience 10,000%. I'm not certain people want to buy it yet. And there's hesitation around that. And so there's been enough of wins in the centralization space that's going to kind of move to outsourcing. And then once people outsource for 8 months, they'll be like, wait a second, an agent can do this. Right. And then the agent's going to flip just like that.
Yeah.
So I would like to see in a Q3, Q4, that percentage of agent, let's say software that's being deployed, deployments, starting to increase and break through that kind of that water tension. Yeah. And then 2026 is going to hammer. Right. And so the interim period to get there, because how we open the conversation around operating expenses is just there's just no air. Right. It's going to have to be outsourcing. And so I just feel like outsourcing is easier to buy in 2025 because you're solving the pain problem around operating expenses. And then the pain point that's going to be looking to solve for is so it's a yes and statement. Yes, and I think this is how it's going to be done. Because we've been trying to sell the agent experience for the AI agent experience for a year. Right. And it's just, people are really hesitant. There's still this belief that they compete on customer intimacy when they actually compete on OpEx, and people are confused by that. And it's just it's got to sort itself out. So yes, and to Mike's comment, it is the agent experience. It's going to be about AI operationalizing. Operationalizing everything.
Yeah, I think the reason why they go to outsourcing, so I'm going to piggyback on all of that, is because their AI readiness level is not there. They don't have good systems around their data. And the only way they can get that is if they go to outsourcing first, right? Then it forces them to document all their process, because the outsourced person's going, what the hell do you want me to do? I don't know what to do. And then they go, oh, well, we outsourced this to a VA or somebody or whatever. And then they forced us to create all these processes. Yeah, now you can automate that crap because you forced you to get your data clean, get your data systems good. You teach your staff how to manage around the data. And then once you do that, yeah, of course, it's easy. Now you go, because you did the hard work to be ready for AI, right? I mean, you're just outsourcing it to a person instead of an AI agent. But all of that painful process to go through in order to be ready for AI, yes, you're going to do that with a person. But they're going to go, hey, you know,
you're not.
so,
Well,
like,
it'll go like outsource,
yeah.
outsource with nothing, and then outsource, enhance with AI, and then just AI. So
Yeah.
it'll be like imagine two acrobats swinging in a trapeze or whatever, right? They're gonna hold hands for a little bit, and then they're gonna let go.
Yeah.
Great
But that's because of the readiness level at the real estate side, right? They're not ready for it. And even I mean, if you look at, you know, the big year last year, or the big spotlight last year was, do we have, can we all point, we had all these desperate systems like all over the place. We had 16 logins or whatever, and it was a year of integration. How do we make these things all talk? And so then you had like Perpexo and Lot Solutions and all these different people trying to solve that problem. Well, AI can solve that. They don't even need to talk to one another. They can just scrape down the data, pull down the data, and it can integrate it for you, put it on a dashboard and tell you what to do. But we're not there yet, right? So at some point, the AI solves the integration problem. Like at the end of the day, you don't need no offense, Remen, I really like you, dude, but you don't need a Perpexo. You don't need to solve that because AI will do it for you.
So I do have a question then. So if we agree, this is something I've been asking for probably 6 months now. If we agree that we're moving towards a more automated, more centralized market, right?
Yeah.
Who is going to buy first? What market? Like what sub? Is it the 1,000? Is it the 2,000 units? Is it the 100,000 units? Who's going to be the one that's willing to embrace that change first? Or maybe better put, who's feeling the most amount of pain that they can't actually run their business if they don't solve this?
In my head, it's not predicated on pain. It may be in part, but I think REITs always move first in this. Like you think about centralization as a concept, that was happening 20 years ago at Equity Residential. I was there. I was on site at the time and we were centralizing, right? So I think in my head, the big REITs are always the drivers, the main drivers of adoption. And they're the first to adopt it either internally or externally, like you're suggesting.
And because they've got public eyes.
Right.
No, it's because they have to return 90% of their profits to their shareholders. They're working on a 10% margin.
Yeah, but every quarter, every month, every quarter, they have to publish, and so no one else has to publish.
Exactly. So they've been on this whole optimization train forever and a day, you know. And so they of course they're going to adopt technology first. They're like, ew, you know. I mean, they've got it. Like if they don't hit their number, and they publicly forecast what they're gonna distribute. And if they don't hit their damn number, I mean, they're in trouble, right?
I think like who's got a refinance and who's got a public number. It's all about the external forces that are actually going to be the ones that force change.
Yes,
I think this might be the year where you see a real. So you have this SFR BTR operating model, right? That was kind of a forcing function, right? They had to figure out how to do it. You couldn't operate single family homes all over the place without some sort of centralized system. And I think you're going to see a lot of those concepts and philosophies come over to multifamily. Multifamily has been slow to adopt some of those things. And I think that's going to really change the non-REIT multifamily space. But I think REITs are going to adopt that first, because some of those REIT players went off into the BTR and SFR worlds. And Fred Twomey is one of the people who did that and drove that. And I think those philosophies are going to come over to multifamily.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, here's our show, man. Look at that. All right. We have this every week on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Central. So y'all tune in. 2025 Commercial Real Estate Morning News Show every day of the week. So
we talked about residential more than commercial.
I know, it's okay. It's all good.
Look who you got on.
I know. It's all right. No worries. So
all
maybe
right.
I'll name it the Real Estate Morning News Show. Who knows? But we're going to.
It might be easier.
Might be easier.
Thanks,
new year, new name, everything new. Yeah, exactly. For sure. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for coming on my show. Thanks for being here.
Good seeing you. Take care.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And there it is. The multifamily edition of the Commercial Real Estate Morning News Show, which now is being renamed to the Real Estate Morning News Show, which is awesome sauce. So if y'all tune in, next week, we're going to start having these every day. We're going to have focus on every single segment. So we love to have you guys, and we will see y'all next week.